Get NFL Sunday Ticket at its lowest price ever and watch every game every Sunday. Take your NFL experience to even greater heights with NFL Sunday Ticket Deluxe, which gives you Red Zone, bringing you the final yards from around the league along with minute-to-minute NFL fantasy updates. Call us at 601-8992 to sign up today.
Good evening, Bahamas, and thanks for joining us at MB12. Coming up tonight in news, government in the final stages of negotiations with BTC, but it may not end as planned. This as the Prime Minister defends value-added tax. Plus, we'll tell you which crime recommendations from the members of the public will be implemented. And the Parent-Teacher Association at Stephen Dillett Primary says the school is unfit for students and teachers. We have those stories and much more coming up tonight. I'm Christina McNeil, and your MB12 starts right now. Joining us. Government's efforts to regain majority shares in the Bahamas Telecommunications Company have reached the final stage, but will it end in the Christie administration's favor? While he's awaiting Cable and Wireless Communications' response on government's final position, Prime Minister Perry Christie hinted today there is a possibility government might not get the 2% of BTC shares it pledged to take back. Vonique Toot reports.
As take-back talks between government's negotiating team and Cable and Wireless Communications reach the final stage, Prime Minister Perry Christie suggested this morning government may have to concede that CWC is not willing to hand over 2%. However, he stressed talks have not failed. Christie says Chairman of BTC's board, Tony Rice, indicated they would agree to give up 2% of BTC's shares if government accepts CWC's proposition. However, the Prime Minister rejected it.
They obviously would say, listen, we would agree with 2% and the 2% on these conditions. These are the conditions that will apply to the 2%. I'm saying I could not agree with all of the conditions, and so therefore I've replied to them in that vein. I would expect that we are at the final stage of our negotiations, that there only is one letter to be written, and that letter is from them in response to me. And when I receive that, then we will tell you what the position is.
Christie would not say what the proposal was or why he turned it down. However, a few months back, government rejected CWC's offer to relinquish majority shares in BTC in exchange for extending its cellular monopoly. The Prime Minister says he made his final position clear to Rice on Sunday and awaits his response.
If there is no further response from him, then we must then inform the Bahamian public of the position as it is, meaning that Cable and Wireless has not found it possible to concede the 2% in circumstances that are acceptable to the government.
But would that mean the Progressive Liberal Party failed to deliver on its campaign promise to change the BTC deal? The Prime Minister says no.
I think most people thought it was impossible to get them to agree to the 2%. That was not an issue, I think. After a certain course in the discussions we've had, it was not really an issue. The only issue would be what price would be prepared to pay for the 2%.
The Ingram administration sold 51% of BTC shares to Cable and Wireless in 2011, leaving government with 49%. Christie says CWC is concerned about relinquishing control, but it shouldn't be.
We told them that was never an issue, that we would not tamper with the management of BTC, and that we would ordinarily have them manage it. And even when we were talking about having 51% privatization with 51% of the shares to Bahamians, we were conceding that the management would be to the minority shareholder.
Christie says he will report to Bahamians on the outcome. Reporting for NB12, I'm Vonique Toot.
Well, as government moves to introduce 15% value-added tax on goods and services next year, Prime Minister Christie says he should not have to be fighting what he called untruths on the matter and have it massacred by certain groups with different motives. On Monday, the Nassau Institute predicted that VAT implementation would be welfare destructive, lowering government revenue, costing businesses over $100 million annually, and resulting in job losses.
My government ought not to have to fight irrelevancies, misstatements, untruths, without being able to legitimately expect entities like the International Monetary Fund to come in, knowing that it has a vested interest in the integrity of what we're trying to do, to ensure that countries do not allow themselves to have what other countries around the region have done and the world have done, to have it massacred by people with a different philosophy or different motives.
Christie addressed the brewing controversy surrounding VAT during the opening of the International Monetary Fund Caribbean Forum held at the Atlantis Resort. He says he was not surprised by the 46-page study titled The Economic Consequences of Value-Added Tax for the Bahamas. He feels it was based on incorrect premises.
There are lots of people who, for their own reasons, will distort the truth of that, will use misinformation to cause people to say, I don't want it. And we think that is disastrous, and a disastrous outcome.
He called on the IMF to back the Bahamas up on this issue.
The International Monetary Fund must enter a debate of that kind, because this is a part of what they recommend to countries. And they must be able to stand behind it and let countries have the assurance that it is not Perry Christie or the PLP on some whim doing this, but this is a part of a concerted effort to have a first-class economy in the Bahamas that will serve the best interest of all the people of the country.
Shifting gears, the effects of government's new crime-fighting strategy are already being seen, according to National Security Minister Dr. Bernard Nottage. And now government is looking to roll out a number of initiatives that members of the public have recommended to help in fight against crime. From the introduction and tabling of a number of bills to create a sexual offenders registry and the possible implementation of random drug testing in schools, Paige McCartney tells us what crime-reducing measures government is considering.
This booklet contains the 52 recommendations made by members of the public at that crime forum about a month ago. In it, government has responses to those recommendations on whether they will be implemented or considered for review. Nottage said the booklet confirms that talking to the public can be helpful. Since the forum in August, police have been placed on 12-hour shifts, the defense force has been brought into the crime fight, and saturation patrols have increased significantly. But one of the measures recommended by the public that was implemented immediately was that police take a no-tolerance approach to minor crimes.
I think that you will agree that this has been demonstrated in increased arrests for traffic violations and for possession of dangerous drugs and, of course, for illegal weapons.
Nottage has previously said that cash for gold businesses are a catalyst to the crime problem, with criminals snatching jewelry to cash in. He wouldn't provide much details, but the minister said bills will soon be tabled in the House of Assembly to address what regulations will be put in place for those businesses which have exported in excess of $150 million in gold over the past 5 years or so. Now, in response to the number of teenagers and young people who are arrested and charged with major crimes, Nottage said government is seriously considering a Parental Responsibility Act, which would hold parents of minors accountable for the crimes their children commit.
And we have many minor children now. We have 13-year-olds, 15-year-olds. We have 15-year-olds who are being charged with murder. Ladies and gentlemen.
And to reduce the number of people in Her Majesty's prison serving time for possessing small amounts of illegal drugs, government is proposing a drug treatment court that would provide rehabilitation to those offenders rather than having them serve hard time. The plan is to also consider random drug testing in schools.
We're going to recommend that there be at least random drug testing in our schools in order to, one, cause them to think very seriously about using drugs, but secondly, to determine to the extent that we're able who is and how we can use that information to combat the use of drugs by young people.
Additionally, when Parliament reconvenes on October 2nd, the plan is to table an amendment to the Sexual Offences and Domestic Violence Acts to provide a sexual offenders register and to table a bill to amend the Child Protection Act to include Marco's Law. Nottage said he hopes to see these bills passed before the end of the year.
Many of you have been asking me about Marco's Law. Well, Marco's Law is about to become the law. We will be moving an amendment to the Child Protection Act, which, if passed, will establish a mandatory action for rescuing children known as the Marco Alert. This system, we hope, will garner the support of society as a whole and will aid in facilitating the recovery of abducted and/or endangered children.
The booklet of recommendations is now available to the public. The Ministry of National Security intends to hold another crime forum in the Pinewood Gardens, Nassau Village area to get more suggestions from the public. For MB12, I'm Paige McCartney.
Another recommendation coming from members of the public is that the Defense Force be stationed at the southern tip of the island, where illegal Haitian sloops typically land with scores of immigrants on a regular basis. In response, Nottage says Defense Force Commodore Roderick Bowe will put a permanent station at the South Beach pools, effective today, so that the border is always guarded.
They will have the capacity to provide surveillance of the whole border. You know, people have been very upset about the Haitian sloops and other craft that have brought illegal immigrants to the Bahamas through that route. And the Defense Force will establish a station there and will be permanently there day and night.
Already, just over 100 Defense Force officers have been deployed to urban renewal centers in the inner city communities and are stationed at important government offices like Cabinet, the Office of the Prime Minister, and the Attorney General's office.
What we've done is we've worked along with them in the past few days and in positions in strategic areas where they were stationed, and we're learning the roles that they were playing there, and we're replacing them as we move along.
The plan is to have 150 Defense Force officers deployed to assist police. The probe into abuse claims made by Cuban detainees while at the Carmichael Road Detention Center has been delayed. Our news team understands government has yet to appoint the retired Court of Appeal Justice and a second person who will lead the investigation. The reported abuse allegedly happened nearly 4 months ago, with issues surrounding the allegations capturing public attention locally and internationally. The delay has led F&M Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs Hubert Chipman to accuse government of dragging its feet on the matter.